What's up and welcome to another edition of the Cover 2 Recap. I'm BruinSportsReport.com publisher Edward Lewis. As always, this is Ryan Karchi, the OC Register's UCLA beat writer. We're here today at UCLA where it just wrapped up its 8th day of spring ball.
Past the midway point.
Finally. Some of the news and notes come from injuries today. We finally talked to Jim Mora, finally got an update. Johnny Johnson's shoulder injury looks to be semi-serious. He's going to miss spring, and then we don't really know what the status is from him after that. Caleb Benenoch left practice early with a hyperextended knee, it looked like. Zach Whitley fell down some stairs, has a bruise, and had to miss a part of practice today as well. Some other injury notes were...
Isako Savayanaya was probably the best news they got today. He'll be, supposedly they're expecting him back at the next practice, which is, I'd say, probably good news based on the fact that he's missed the whole last week.
Eldridge Massington also did not show up today with what was described as a ding, whatever that means.
Sounds precautionary with his head injury. Obviously, they don't want to mess with that, so held him out of practice.
And outside linebacker Ian Tobler was also held out of practice again for reasons we didn't actually get clarification from Jim Mora. But other than that, today's note, I guess big news or thing, was the offensive line. With the injury to Caleb Benenoch, with Alex Redmond still not participating very much with his broken hand, they had to do some kind of musical chairs. Malcolm Bunchman at right tackle, Kenny Lacy playing some guard, Scott Quisenplayer playing center and guard as well. I mean, it was musical chairs. It was a rough afternoon for the O-line.
There were so many changes that Ed didn't even mention the fact that Kenny Lacy and Poasi Moala switched back and forth at left tackle, because how can we keep all these straight? Jim Mora couldn't even keep any of the changes straight. He couldn't really comment on any of the offensive line because he wasn't sure who was playing where. So I think that says all you need to know about how much they moved around. But we did kind of get a good look, I thought in particular, at Poasi Moala and Kenny Lacy. And we kind of amped them up at the beginning of spring because they definitely started very strong. I think they hit a little bit of a wall, both of them. Poasi, especially, we talked about him struggling a little bit these last few days. I thought Kenny Lacy looked a little better than him today, personally. With that, obviously they'll end up playing right tackle with Caleb Benenoch, coming back. His injury's not serious. But the question I think going forward is, you have Simon Goins, who's had these reoccurring leg injuries, knee injuries. You have these two very, clearly up-and-coming tackles in Moala and Kenny Lacy. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. I wouldn't say that Simon Goins' spot is guaranteed. I know Adrian Clem was kind of weird about it, talking about it, just saying a while ago that they weren't going to rush him back at all. He was very clear about that. So I think if there's any lingering effects at all, we're going to see, I would say probably Poasi at this point, just because I think he probably has a higher ceiling. Kenny Lacy gives a little bit more versatility. But at this point, I think it's probably emerged as probably the top position battle of the entire spring, with Kenny Orgioki kind of taking over that outside linebacker spot. But as for Malcolm Bunch, you got a good look at him. What do you think?
Yeah, he played right tackle for the first time since coming to UCLA. He's been a guard strictly for the first 4 practices. He's been here at UCLA and able to participate. And kind of an up and down day for him at tackle. At times he looked really good, especially in one-on-ones. He had a couple really nice blocks and kind of stymied his defender. But then at times in 11-on-11, his feet just looked like they were stuck in mud. Now we had a conversation kind of up in the stands about, well, are his feet slow because it's he's conditioning and is he heavy-footed, carrying around all that weight and not being in shape or whatever. So that's something we'll be watching as it moves forward. But if today was any indication of a future for him, I think he stays at guard. I think his feet were just a little heavy-footed to guard guys like O.O. Digizua and Dion Hollins and fast pass rushers on the outsides.
And given how many up-and-coming tackles that UCLA has, I can't imagine that they would move him outside to make for a bigger, jam on at tackle.
Let's get into top performers. Who were some of your standouts today?
I think you mentioned this guy before a few practices ago, but Kenny Walker really looks like he's kind of come back from that back injury. He's starting to learn the position more just because, he was hurt last year. He missed some valuable time in which he would have learned. But now, I know Eric Yarber called it, pure unadulterated speed, or adulterated speed, he called it at the time. But the dude is just fast. I mean, he was blowing past guys. There was one one-on-one route where Priest Willis went to defend him, and Kenny Walker just blew straight past him, without any trouble. Brett Hundley said he very clearly noticed that. He doesn't really have to tell Kenny much else other than to just run, and then he can throw it up to him. My other guy I thought was, I know we've talked a lot about, linebackers. I don't think I've given due credit to Jayon Brown, who, last year came in as the safety, and they kind of moved him back and forth. And, before I was kind of leery of his move to linebacker, but I think so far, he's gotten a lot more time with Isako Suainaya out, and he's been really impressive. He's very aggressive. He's got a very ball-hawking mentality, and he's obviously good in coverage because he played that safety spot. So, if they're in a bind and they need him to come in kind of a nickel package, I think he's definitely capable of doing it at this point.
Usually we only do 2 top performers, but I cheated today a little bit. I did 3. Miles Jack was just so good, and he's such a known commodity that we kind of don't like talking about him on here because everybody knows he's a Heisman Trophy candidate. But today, just the way he was moving sideline to sideline, making plays from inside and outside, and in one-on-ones. I mean, he moves like a safety, hits like a linebacker, and pass rushes like a defensive end. I mean, he's outstanding. My other guy out of the box here is Kevin McReynolds. I'm not sure he's done enough to really push for significant playing time, but he's done enough to make you say, wow, for a guy that was playing guard last year. He looks clearly like the second best nose tackle on his team. I think he had like 1 or 2 sacks today, dominated Scott Quisenberry in one-on-one rep, and really is performing well out here. I think if he keeps kind of progressing, he could be clearly that number 2 option behind Kenny Clark. My last guy is Kaimi Fairburn. I know Jim Mora kind of harped on this after practice, but they were trying to miss a kick to simulate a recovery of a kick. You know what I mean? When he return. He kicked it 60 yards and Ishmael Adams standing there. Well, Jim Mora couldn't back Kaimi Fairburn far enough back. He put him at 60 yards and Fairburn just booted it through. I had him at 9 for 9 today with a 55-yarder and a 60-yarder, and he's really been consistent all spring. I think he had 1 bad day, but the rest of the spring, I think he's only missed 1 or 2 out of 8 or 9 kicks, every practice through these last 8 practices.
And it's that long distance stuff that was always the problem. He was always pretty consistent, from 40 yards in. But, he has missed some big kicks from 40 yards and out. So, assuming he takes a step forward, like Jim Morris talked about, that would definitely help out their special teams play.
That'll do it for our coverage today, the 8th day of spring ball. As always, you can follow Ryan's coverage of UCLA at Ryan_Karchi on Twitter and at OCRegister.com. You can follow me on Twitter at EvanLewisBSR and at BruinsSportsport.com. Until the next time, thanks for tuning in to the Cover 2 Recap.